In this video, I want to cover the topic of whether or not Christians should and can be involved in supporting the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem without compromising their faith in Jesus. So what we're going to talk about is taken from a new book called Rebuilding the Temple, and the book will be mentioned at the end of this video. So let's start by talking about some donors from West Papua who came to the Temple Institute a few years ago, and they came to Temple Institute head Israel Ariel, who's seen on this picture, and they said, "We have a donation for you." And when he saw the donation, he became emotional, because there was 1 kilo of solid gold. Now, West Papua is a place that's rich in gold, and these Christians said, "We want to support you. We have read in Zechariah that those from afar will come and build the temple of the Lord." But many Christians would ask, can we really be involved in supporting the temple? After all, isn't the church the temple of God, and aren't we as believers the temple of God? And what about the end times? What about the Antichrist? So let's have a little look at this topic. Will the third temple be an Antichrist temple? Now, many scriptures about the end times refer to there being a temple there that is being defiled by the Antichrist. So, therefore many of us believe that there will be a temple standing in the end times. It's the most literal way of looking at those scriptures. It's hard to understand it otherwise. If it was not a temple, if it was the church being defiled, then it complicates the prophecy and makes it hard to understand the connection between the defiling of the temple and an assault on Jerusalem that happens around the same time. So, therefore, I personally believe there will be a third temple. It will be built, but will it be an Antichrist temple? Since the Antichrist will be defiling it, will he be building it? Will he be the one behind it? And will it therefore be really a site that is an abomination to the Lord from its very beginning until its end? Well, the Bible itself calls the end-time temple the temple of God. We read that in Revelation 11 and 2 Thessalonians 2, as well as in Matthew 24. And we have to remember that these scriptures, as they describe a defiling of the temple, it then infers that the temple was holy to begin with, that the temple was set apart to God to begin with and was seen as genuinely holy. Only what is holy to God can be desecrated. So if it's not holy to God to begin with, then there's no point in the Antichrist defiling the temple, because it's not defiling what is holy in the first place. So this temple will be seen as holy in the eyes of God. Won't it be a place of compromise? Now, some of the leaders in the Third Temple movement are seeking to build bridges with the Islamic community. They say, let's all pray together to the one God. And really, as Bible-believing Christians, we don't agree with this. But we need to remember that even in Jesus' day, the leaders of the temple back then were corrupt. They had departed from a biblical standard, yet the disciples continued to meet there after Jesus' death. They preached there, they prayed there, they saw healings there. Why did they keep going there even after Jesus' death? Well, firstly, they saw the temple as having an ongoing role. They didn't abandon the temple. That's very important to note. Secondly, the leaders in their day of the temple were the very ones who were responsible for the death of Jesus. Yet the disciples met there after the death of Jesus, after the resurrection of Jesus, because they recognized the place as being holy and chosen by God. Despite corrupt leadership, despite wrong teachings by those leaders, despite sinful lifestyles of those leaders, they recognized that God still had chosen that place. He says to Solomon that I have chosen this place, that my name might be there forever. My eyes, my ears will be continuously open to prayer in this place. And the disciples knew these scriptures, and therefore they continued to come to this place in Jerusalem. So even if a third temple becomes a place of compromise, that doesn't mean that it's not a genuine temple in the eyes of God, and that we as Christians can't honour the site for the fact that God has chosen it, despite whatever else might be happening at the time. So can Christians support the Third Temple? Well, Christians have played a key role in the restoration of Israel so far. From the very birth of the Zionist movement, Christians helped open the door for the Jewish people who want to return to their land to meet key leaders throughout Europe. They opened the door for Theodor Herzl to begin to present his case. They worked on the Balfour Declaration, which came through the British government, opening the way for the re-establishment of Israel. It was Christians who were involved in this. It was a very practical, hands-on task. Some Christians would say that we should just be involved in evangelism, and yes, we have a mandate to reach out and preach the gospel. But we can see how God used the Christians throughout the restoration of Israel here to work in with what God was doing, which is ultimately setting the stage for the return of the Messiah. So Christians have played a key role in helping found the State of Israel in 1948, in helping bring Jewish people back from the four corners of the world, from Russia, from other countries. Christians have supported them, helped them come back. Christians have prayed as Israel has faced combat and faced war. If Christians have helped so far, why can't they help in this area of the ultimate restoration of Israel, coming back to the worship of God on the Temple Mount? Now the temple, if it is rebuilt, it will point the Jewish people back to sacrifices. Now in olden times, sacrifices were made all the time, and it told of the importance of an innocent life dying for our sins. Yet when the temple was destroyed, Rabbinical Judaism moved away from sacrifices and said, we don't need sacrifices anymore. We can just do good works. If the temple is rebuilt, it will revolutionize Judaism and will point them back to the need for sacrifice, point them back to the need for blood to cleanse away sin. And ultimately this will help prepare the way for them to understand and receive the Messiah's sacrifice, the one who gave his life for his people. And the temple ultimately sets the stage for the end times. The events of the end times cannot happen until these developments are in place. So I believe we can support the rebuilding of the temple as Christians without compromising our faith. At the same time, each one of us will be led in different ways. Some might just be praying, whereas others might get involved in other ways. But ultimately, let's all continue to pray and believe that God will continue to restore Israel and bring her back to her rightful place and prepare the way of the Messiah, prepare the way for her to receive him and for all the nations to receive him as Lord. So this little video has been a snippet from the new book called Rebuilding the Temple, which I have written just recently. It covers topics like the preparations taking place to recreate the temple vessels, the use of DNA technology to identify priests, the key role of the temple throughout Bible prophecy. It covers a Jewish perspective on the abomination of desolation. It talks about Islam, Christianity and the temple, how it might all fit together, and ultimately how it all points to the Lord's soon return. For more details, go to www.pastorenoch.com.au. Thank you so much.